Star Wars Episode 9 The Rise of Skywalker. Surely this review isn't that late. Okay, I think that everything that can be said about this movie has already been said, but here goes. It's from director J.J. Abrams and is the conclusion to the sequel trilogy. As you all may remember, he started the trilogy with what was essentially a remake of the original, but a particularly good retelling of that story. But the reins for The Last Jedi were given to Rian Johnson, who took that story into new directions. I know it was kind of a divisive movie, but I really liked it, even though I'll admit that it had its flaws. And now we get to this. First, the good. It has much of the same action and effects that caused us all to fall in love with Star Wars in the first place, but the story is also confusing, and the whole thing is a little too fan-servicey. It seems a little too afraid to do anything we haven't seen before. It even undoes a lot of what happened in The Last Jedi that might get in the way of this conventional nature. At the end of that movie, I was left wondering how they would continue that story, and as it turns out, J.J. Abrams may not have been so sure either. For that reason, I can kind of understand bringing back Palpatine so there would at least be a main villain. I can also understand not wanting to anger fans who were upset by some of the changes, but it just feels like it's just trying too hard to please. Regardless of what you felt about The Last Jedi, it at least had ambition. It was willing to surprise us, do things we haven't seen before. Say what you will about Marvel movies being formulaic, but at least they evolve over time. I mean, something like Infinity War or Endgame feels very different than anything in the early days of the MCU. This movie is Star Wars refusing to evolve and relying solely on nostalgia, which I don't see drawing too many people to see them at the rate that Disney wants to put them out. But all that would be okay for me if the story wasn't so thick with plot that a lot of it just becomes kind of confusing and full of holes. It's just a generic movie with a bad story made for almost the sole purpose of evoking nostalgia, even though plenty of those elements that were supposed to be nostalgic were also in the more recent Star Wars installments. The effects and action are decent, but they can't save this.